I never believed in curses until the day my neighbor, Mama Esi, gave birth. The whole village was excited. Mama Esi had waited years for a child, and when she finally went into labor, we all rushed to help. But when the baby was born, there was a silence that fell over the room. Something was wrong. Mama Esi cradled her child, but the baby didn't look right. The small face was twisted, eyes too wide and unblinking. The mouth opened in a silent scream, as if it had come from another world. We tried to comfort Mama Esi, but she looked at her baby with a mix of love and fear. I remember standing in the corner, watching as the midwife whispered to the others. "This one is not like the others," she said. "It carries a darkness." I shivered at her words. For days after the birth, Mama Esi's home was alive with visitors, bringing gifts and food. But every time someone held the baby, they would flinch, as if they could feel the weight of something heavy in their chest. I saw it too, the way the baby gazed at you with eyes that seemed to know more than they should. Rumors began to spread. Some said the baby was a spirit, a changeling sent to steal souls. Others said it was cursed, a sign that Mama Esi had angered the gods. I didn't want to believe it, but fear gripped the village. One night, I was awoken by a loud wailing. I knew it was the baby. I tossed and turned, unable to shake the feeling of dread. Finally, I pulled on my clothes and crept outside. The moon was bright, casting shadows on the ground. I moved toward Mama Esi's house, drawn by the sound. As I approached, I saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was Mama Esi. Her hair disheveled, her eyes wild, she was crying, rocking back and forth. "It won't stop," she whispered. "It won't stop." I stepped closer and she turned to me, her face pale. "It knows things no baby should know. It speaks to me in dreams." "What does it say?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Things about the village secrets." She looked around as if afraid someone might overhear. "It told me about the old woman who lives by the river. It said she's the one who cursed me." I felt a chill run down my spine. The old woman, Mama Nia, was known for her strange potions and whispered spells. She was feared and respected. Days turned into weeks and the baby grew, but it didn't grow like other babies. It didn't coo or giggle. Instead, it watched, always watching. The villagers began to avoid Mama Esi's home. I could see the fear in their eyes, the way they whispered behind closed doors. One evening, I visited Mama Esi. I found her sitting on the floor, the baby in her lap. "It's getting worse," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's changing me." I looked at the baby, its eyes still unblinking, and felt a wave of nausea. "What do you mean?" "It makes me see things," she said, her hands trembling. "I see shadows moving in the night. I hear voices calling my name." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the sounds outside. The wind howled, and I imagined the baby's eyes watching me from the darkness. I finally fell asleep, but my dreams were filled with nightmares. I saw Mama Esi standing by the river, the old woman beside her, whispering secrets. The next morning, I found Mama Esi at the market, looking gaunt and hollow. I approached her, but she just stared through me. "I have to take the baby to Mama Nia," she said suddenly. "I have to break the curse." I felt a surge of panic. "But she's dangerous. What if she does something to you?" "I have no choice," she replied, her voice flat. "It's the only way." I followed her to the river, my heart pounding. The sun was setting, casting an eerie glow. When we reached Mama Nia's hut, the old woman was waiting, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't understand. Mama Esi held the baby out, trembling. "Please, I need your help." Mama Nia laughed. A low rasping sound. Oh, I know. It's not just a baby. It's a vessel. A vessel for what? I asked, my voice shaking. Darkness, she replied, looking at me with a knowing smile. It carries the weight of many souls. Mama Esi gasped, and I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? It feeds on fear and despair, Mama Nia said, and it will not stop until it has taken everything. I wanted to run, to pull Mama Esi away, but I was frozen in place. The baby let out a wail, one that seemed to echo for miles. Mama Nia stepped forward, her voice rising above the sound. You have to give it what it wants, or it will destroy you. What does it want? Mama Esi cried, her face twisted in anguish. Your soul, Mama Nia said simply. It needs a sacrifice. In that moment, I knew we were in deep trouble. We were standing at the edge of something dark and terrible. I grabbed Mama Esi's arm, pulling her back. We have to leave. But Mama Esi shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I can't. It's too late for me. I felt desperation clawing at my heart. Please, don't do this. But she turned to the old woman, her voice barely a whisper. What do I need to do? Mama Nia smiled, a cruel twist of her lips. You must offer yourself to the child. Only then will it be satisfied. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No, you can't, I shouted. But the words fell flat against the weight of the moment. With a resigned look, Mama Esi stepped closer to the child. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I felt helpless as I watched her reach out, her hands trembling. Stop her! I screamed, but it was too late. As she leaned down, the baby let out a piercing scream that echoed through the trees. In an instant, the world around us changed. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, and I felt a cold wind whip through the clearing. The air grew thick, and I could barely breathe. Mama Esi! I cried, but it was as if she couldn't hear me. She was lost in the darkness that surrounded us. Then in a flash, the baby's eyes glowed with an unnatural light. I felt a pull, as if something was reaching for my very soul. I stumbled back, terror coursing through me. Just as I thought I would be swallowed whole, the shadows receded. Mama Esi stood frozen, a look of horror etched on her face. The baby, now calm, looked up at her with eyes that held a terrible hunger. Mama Esi, run! I shouted, but she remained still, lost in a trance. The moment stretched out, unbearable. Then, with a sudden movement, Mama Esi turned and fled into the woods, the baby's cry echoing behind her. I ran after her, not knowing where we were headed, but driven by fear. We stumbled through the trees until we reached the edge of the village. Mama Esi collapsed, gasping for breath. Mama Esi, I cried, kneeling beside her. What happened? She looked up, eyes wide with terror. It wants me, she whispered. It will never stop. I tried to comfort her, but I could see the darkness creeping in, the shadows lurking just beyond the firelight. From that day on, Mama Esi was not the same. She spoke less and less, her eyes always searching the shadows. The baby remained with her, a constant reminder of the curse that had taken hold of her life. I could hear her sobbing at night, the sound echoing in the stillness, and always the baby's wail would follow, a haunting melody of fear and despair. The village grew quiet, the laughter fading. People stopped visiting Mama Esi, too afraid of what the baby might bring. I felt it too, a darkness creeping into our lives, a shadow that would not leave. One night, I had a dream. I found myself by the river, Mama Nia standing before me. You cannot escape, she said, her voice a whisper on the wind. The darkness is hungry. I woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing. I knew then that the curse was not just on Mama Esi but on all of us. Days turned into months, and the village changed. Shadows lurked everywhere, fear becoming a part of our lives. We spoke in hushed tones, glancing over our shoulders, and then one morning, the news came. Mama Esi was gone. The baby was found alone, crying in the darkness. The villagers whispered that it was a sign that the curse had taken her. I stood at the edge of the village, watching as they took the baby away. I felt a chill run down through me, a sense of foreboding. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was still there, lurking just out of sight. I realized then that the baby was not just a child, it was a reminder of what we had lost, a reflection of our deepest fears. The village never recovered. We became shadows of ourselves, haunted by the memory of a baby born wrong. And as the years passed, I knew that the darkness would always be with us, waiting to claim the next soul.